So I'm going to tell you a secret today, a secret that we've learned running a packaging design agency, working with multinationals in lots of different countries. And the topic, like she announced, is how do we use packaging design smarter and use it to drive revenue. It's not just packaging design for the sake of having pretty graphics, but how do you actually use it smart? What do multinationals do? So they asked me to share a few secrets on this. Before we start, I'll do a quick intro. My name is Matt. If you can pronounce my name, I'll buy you a drink after. This is my Dutch name and I changed it since I came to Asia. I've been here since 2002. I came to Asia with Unilever. I worked on the FMCG side on brands before and joined an agency from the UK that was setting up shop in Asia. So I helped build that Asian studio. And in 2005 I left, set up Square 44 because I realized most clients that I have are multinationals and none of the local companies, none of the regional companies. So what we tried to do is establish Square 44 to help some of these companies that are forgotten, the regional companies, the big local companies that don't work with fancy brand design agencies from London. We wanted to help these guys out and make it easy for them to have better branding and pack design as well. So we're on a mission to make 1,000 brands in this region more competitive and help transform them. And that's kind of my goal as I started Square 44. Now, we get a lot of emails coming in. It's like, give me a packaging quote, give me a rate card, what is it going to cost? And I always tell them we don't know, what do you need, and what depth do we need to go into? And we always try and establish what is making packaging valuable. So when we talk about what makes packaging design important, if you think about it, your pack is your brand, right? If you think of this is Heineken, the bottle of Heineken, and they create the space with that, they create the ads with that, they make it. Every application that you see of Heineken, it's green, it's got the red star, it's got a specific font type. If you have strong elements on your pack, your brand becomes the basis for your identity. And another thing is, you use your pack in almost all of your marketing communication. You have your packs in TV commercials, you have your packs in your print ads, you have your packs in your digital ads. If you sponsor something, your pack is shown. Your social media, your retail, your out of home, your activation in food courts, etc. This shows a pack everywhere. And if you have a good looking pack, it's going to help your brand. If there's a lot of difference between all these executions, you spend a lot more money on marketing to get your message across. All the marketing people talk about frequency and reach, right? These are the two only metrics that they think about. And frequency is how many people or how often do I blast an ad out, and reach is how many people actually see that. Your pack design at point of purchase is seen by almost 100% of the crowd. And that's one of the only marketing tools that can claim that. If you do a TV ad, I go to the bathroom for 30 seconds and I come back, or I click skip on YouTube, I don't want to watch that ad. But your pack design is where people are engaged, where it's important. And the other thing is, we live in a fast-moving world where people swipe left, swipe right, 2 seconds, I click to the next Instagram story because I don't want to wait 15 seconds. Packaging spends most time with your consumer. Your pack is there for, I don't know, this pack will be standing here for my whole presentation. It's a ProPak can, but if that's an Evian bottle, I can see that the whole time. You might have gum with you the whole day in your pocket and you see that several times. You take a shower maybe twice a day and you see your shampoo bottle standing there. It has opportunity to communicate. But many people here still don't really leverage packs to drive revenue. The last thing is, if you look at consumers, 72% say good packs influence my purchase decision. And equally, bad packs make me not want to buy those products. So what can we do to make packs better? On the other side, if you have really bad packs, this was some good news. If you have really bad packs, it can damage your opportunities. It can really harm a brand. And there's so many brands here that don't modernize, for example, quick enough, and these brands die because competition comes in. And then you're irrelevant. And then suddenly you have a market share of 60%, suddenly it's down to 5%. How do you ever regain that? That's too late. If you look at poorly executed packs, in the world of choice that we face today, like I go to the supermarket and there are so many products out there. It's like a jungle. What packs stand out? Do people care about all these products? We were at Gulf Food in Dubai, and there's just so many booths, you cannot walk through it in 5 days. And everybody's trying to sell their products to other markets, find distributors, find exporters. And then you look at your pack, it's like, that doesn't look so good. If you have a better looking brand, then people might connect with you easier. A lot of people don't care about packs if you don't care, right? If a company just doesn't make an effort, people don't connect with that brand. They don't engage, they don't build a relationship. They will switch easier to something else that does make an effort. And yeah, this was Gulf Food, right? It limits your options for growth. Not only if you want to go for export and want to go international, but it's, for example, also like, can you extend the brand? Can you launch a new line extension? Can you launch a new sub-range? Can you go premium? If your core doesn't look good, it's very difficult to expand. This is influencers trying to take on Gatorade. It's a horrible product. It's not a great looking design. But if you have a brand like that nobody cares about, you lose share very fast. These guys come in with just a hip following, and people buy that because the competition hasn't done much to really engage, hasn't really done much to make them care enough. And this was something when I did a little bit of research for this talk, was shocked about. I wrote some article 8 years ago, and it was about the S&P 500 companies. 85% die after whatever, the ones that were 60 years ago popular, they die. And I read recently that the cycle of business is getting so short that companies are around maybe for 20 years now. And if you don't make an effort, all these big giant companies, we have so many big multinational companies, these brands can die quick because you don't make an effort. And new brands come up, you go to an exhibition, you see the vegan alternative protein packs, they look super nice. They spend a lot of time to design it. And young brands that come up make an effort because they have to. They want to compete with the big guys. So let's go into some secrets. How do you execute your packs better? If you're having a brand, if you're doing design, what can you do to not just put design on the pack that looks nice, but how do you use the graphics to make it sell? How do you drive revenue? How do you get market share? How do you drive market cap? Your brands on your books are intangible value. It's market's intangible value. So these are assets if you use them right. I'm going to talk about 4 things. Visibility. How do you get seen? How do you get the brand noticed in trade? I'm going to be talking about shoppability. How do you find the product easily, and how do you make a selection, and how do you deselect? I'm also going to talk about relevance. I can see it, but I might hate that brand, and then I'm not going to buy it anyway. How do you connect with that brand so you actually make people care? And I'm going to talk about, once you've bought it, what can we do in terms of design to have a better experience when you're confronted with this pack, when I'm drinking it, when it's in my shower, when it's carried with me in my pocket. When we talk about visibility, what the big multinationals look for is getting seen. That's the first thing. Every brief we get in packaging design is about impact. How do I get my brand noticed in the first 2 seconds that the shopper walks through a shelf with 1,000 different products? If you don't get seen, you don't get sold. And what we do is we use eye tracking for these things, right? Eye tracking, neuro. You don't do focus groups that much where you ask people, do you like this pack, do you like that pack, which one do you like more and why? Because then the mothers become the art directors, and it doesn't help us to figure out what they will truly react to when they buy. So what we look at is, how quickly do you see a brand? Is it within the first 2 minutes? How long do you look at it? Do I stare at that, or does my eye gaze and I quickly lose track? There's tricks like eye contact, if you put it on the pack, that make people look at it longer. It is also how often do people look at it. So you look at it, you scan the shelf, do you come back to it? You scan the shelf, do you come back to it? Those are metrics that will give you an indication, if you score high, that your packs are better seen, so they will likely sell better. Now, if we talk about visibility, that's a function of contrast. You need to have visibility on the shelf, you need to look at your competitors. If everybody is blue, maybe don't also use blue. Because why? Then you don't stand out. Try a different color. You don't need to have the most obvious color to get seen. And the last thing is what some of our clients call 10-6-3-1. From 10 feet distance, can I spot the brand? When I move closer to the shelf, at about 6 feet, do I start to see ranges, or do I start to see certain details on the pack that make me want to focus closer? At 3 feet, can I differentiate variants? And at 1 feet, can I find a reason to buy this when I hold it in my hand? So the first thing that the brain picks up is color. Color is the most important thing. Strong colors, if you can leverage it, if you're launching a new brand, think about colors. And these brands, they don't pick colors that are common for the category. If I think of drinks, I don't think of a red color. Coke is supposed to be refreshing. Refreshing is not red. Red makes me feel hot. But red is a very strong color on shelf. Red, yellow, blue, very strong colors. If I think of purple, I don't think of chocolate, but Cadbury established it. And everybody, they try to own that Pantone color on shelf. And they try to have that color registered and nobody else can use this. They lost this now. So you see a lot more brands that come into the market later using purple as a color. The baby brand at the bottom is using yellow. It's a European brand, very unusual color, but you have a family of maybe 30, 40 products, and if they all use the same color, it's really impactful. You see that quick. Besides color, this is one example, a client that we work with, a brand in Nepal. They were a market leader. Now that brand you cannot do much wrong with. This was in the market for 30 years. So they were afraid that we don't look modern enough. Smirnoff is coming into our market. What can we do to update our pack? And we made this radical change where we built on the color blue. Because blue is an interesting color in that category. It wasn't owned yet. And this company tripled in size after the relaunch. They sold 3 times more than before. And that's $7 million they earn per month extra. Your packs don't change every month. So that pack is maybe around 3 to 5 years. So if you're thinking 5 years, 60 months, times $7 million, I don't know, what should I charge for a design like that? That's a good deal he got. The other thing besides color the brain picks up very quick is shape. Like you think of traffic signs, right? This is meant to capture your attention, like a triangle sign in the color red is like, I gotta be careful here, something is gonna happen, I'm gonna die. So Pringles launched as the first chips brand in this strange format because every chips used to be in bags. And they established a whole category there. The idea was to have these big artificial large chips that you can eat that give you a nice crunch. And how do we protect them from breaking? We need this box. And now you see so many brands in that format. And the first guy that moved got good impact. Besides shape of the pack, it's shape of your label. Like Heinz is using this label shape in a very effective way across many different products to establish it's this brand. And if you have a brand that people like, you can expand it. You can grow into different categories. You can make pasta sauces, you can make mayonnaises. People like that. Besides shape, you can use patterns. This is an example. Fisherman's Friend uses the stripes on the pack, kind of blocking the pack on shelf. You can use distinctive visual elements, something that creates contrast on the pack. This blue dot on a white pack, you see that pretty quick. In a category that is white, skincare, that blue dot is something that captures the eye pretty quick. And this is something we call billboarding or blocking, where you use multiple packs next to each other and you create a canvas that is larger. And the reason for this is if you're a new brand, you will not get many facings. You get facings typically based on market share unless you spend a lot of money to buy shelf. But if you use your packs smart, you don't need much surface area. 1 or 2 or 3 facings can give you a big impact. Build a color block, build a kind of connected visual. When you think about visibility, 5 tips you must think about. Think of the shelf context. Who are your competitors left and right? What is your placement on shelf? The competitors decide how you should direct design. If everybody is blue, don't use blue. If they use certain shapes, try and do something else. If nobody is doing anything, be the first one, because it does damage to the category. The number of facings, the way you put your planogram together. Are you on the bottom of the shelf and do people look down? Are you above eye level? Do you have a lot of room or not? And as well the impact of the channel mix. In Asia this is quite important because general trade in certain markets is still very powerful. And in general trade you cannot organize your packs nice. It's whatever the retailer decides. It's darker, you have poor lighting, light packs work better in general trade. So take that into account. The second thing I'm going to talk about is shoppability. So we've got our brand seen. What is the next step? If you have a big portfolio, it's important that it is easy to navigate this whole range in a way that you can make purchase decisions fast. It's important that you find your brand quick, that shoppers don't need to spend too much effort to figure out which variant should I be buying, and it's about the information hierarchy. We got a brief the other day from a skincare brand, and they were very successful. They launched something in 6 different colors. One color was popular and they wanted to extend. They went into multiple different colors, it didn't work because the consumer didn't see that brand anymore. It started to look fragmented. Now we're fixing that. The price of fixing that is more expensive than doing it right from the first time. It's also about selecting, deselecting, and about channels. Let me talk a bit about what I mean. This is a meat brand in the Philippines, and they have about 30 or 40 different products. Different sausages, different meat types, bacons in bags, in chillers, that lay down. You look at the shelf and you look down at this. Everything looked the same, and people couldn't differentiate between the sizes of these sausages. Let's see if this works. Little cocktail sausages, large jumbo, 2 sizes in between. So what we did on this design was to show these visuals very clear. So the shopper, if you have a little kid at home that likes cocktail sausages, you can find that quick. The second thing that is, we use different colors to differentiate flavors. For example, beef, pork, chicken. We want to be able to spot that quick. You might not like beef for religious reason or for some other reason. You want to buy pork or you want to buy chicken. So how do we differentiate that fast? What we're trying to think about when we're designing a portfolio is the way that a shopper shops for a product in that category. This is an example. This is just for a certain category, maybe relevant. You need to think about it for your own category. Do people come with a brand in mind and then look for a product type and then look for a variant? Or is there a different way that they navigate? If you organize your shelf or your pack design to follow the way the shopper makes decisions, then it's likely more effective and you likely sell more. The other point here is once you have a large range navigated on shelf and you zoom into one pack, is that pack constructed in a logical way? This was a brand in Indonesia, Danone brand, which is their biggest powder milk brand in Indonesia, that was a mess. And they were a market leader, but they were losing share quickly. International brands came in and they asked us, what should we do to not lose share? And how do we modernize this? So the relaunch here, every element is on the pack, retained, just polished a bit, but we structured it different. What you see on the pack here, we start with the brand, then we talk about the nutrition message, then we talk about age, then we talk about flavor. We do that from left to right and top to bottom. The kit is just a trick to get you to look at the pack. Because a picture, if there's a kid looking at you, you're going to look at his eyes, you're going to look back at him. If the kid looks away, that picture is a little bit less effective. And I'll go back one more time. Here on this pack, you see brand, some news message, new, or this is nutrition, this is honey, this is age, random pictures, some toys. Let's make it as busy as possible. So when we relaunched it to this, they stopped their decline, they locked in their market leadership, they added $50 million in sales each year extra to this brand. And they have a huge range. There's maybe 30 different SKUs in different sizes on the shelf. And the trick here is what I mentioned before, follow the reading direction. Unless you're in Japan or in the Middle East, we read left to right, top to bottom. In Japan it's a bit different, Middle East it's a bit different, but try to organize your key information across that line. Brand first, most of the time, product visual claims, organizes in the way that the shopper is looking for products in that category. The last thing about shoppability, put this in because we're in Asia and we have big general trade, is the channel context. This brand was a tea brand in Vietnam, not the biggest. Lipton was the biggest brand, and they were mainly sold in general trade. So what we did for general trade was the back of pack, we rotated it so it looks like it's standing upside, like facing you. Some of these packs, they rotate them because of shelf limitations, space limitations. So just use the back smart, because the merchandise appreciates it, your brand is seen better, it's optimized for channel. They beat Lipton after, doubled their sales. It's a top 50 Vietnam power brand now. I think you can buy those awards, but then we have relevance. Once you get seen, once you're easy to shop for, how do you make people actually care about your product? A lot of manufacturers are just pushing out products by the dozens, as much as we can, launch as quick as you can, and try and export to as many markets as you can. But if people don't care, your brand doesn't get sold. How do we use packs to make people care? How do you communicate messages that help them make judgment, help them compare, help them to select and deselect, and also help you get a feeling, is this brand right for me? Does this fit me? Is that an old, outdated pack that my mother used to buy that makes no effort to connect with the next generation? Or is this brand contemporary? Is it going with the time? What's the differentiation? On a brand level, on a product level, is it value? Like, do I get more price value out of this? Brand that is doing quite well, nothing to do with the category, the typical category standards of, yeah, where does it fit? Milk. I think they're trying to grab share from milk, so they want to target that segment. But there is no glass here, there is no splash here, there is no green meadow here, there is no cow here. Okay, it's made from oats. But this brand is connecting with people because of disruption and because it creates interest. They use the pack effectively to communicate, hey, we are 100% vegan. Plant-based is very popular at the moment. We are not dairy, we are not made of nuts, there's no gluten in me. How do you use the product? Shake this first. So these are messages that people like, and the fact that this is disruptive is what attracts people to something. This is an example of exactly the same product, but modernized. So the old pack is what Maggi used to look like. This is a relaunch we did in Sri Lanka for coconut milk powder, a big SKU for them. And there was nothing wrong with that pack, but it didn't look up to date anymore. And big multinationals have short cycles in which they change packs. So they, maybe about 3 to 5 years, update their packs depending on how competitive the category is. If it is not competitive, 5 years. If it's very competitive, 3 years or shorter. Shampoo, for example, very short cycles. They launch something and they're already doing a new design. So what do we do on this design? I mean, we're talking to Generation Z. Every brief that we get is Generation Z. And how do you have impact for Generation Z? It's top food shots, something that looks nice, because we are all foodies. We have this on Instagram. So replicate it on the pack so it feels more contemporary. And the last thing here, and I'm guilty of this, I bought this. I didn't know how to make it. I just bought it for the picture. I was walking in the supermarket and I was hungry. I don't know if you've had this before, you're nodding. But I bought that. I didn't buy the right ingredients to make it. I don't even know how to make it. I don't have an oven, but that looked pretty good. So if your product is in an impulse category, leverage it, use it. What does it trigger? How do you trigger people to buy that? Then brand claims. This is a brand that is supposed to have a mission. There's a story behind this. Sometimes this get confused. Different messages that they put on the pack. Is this still real? Should I still believe this? As a marketeer, knowing how companies treat claims, I'm a bit nervous when I see that. But what does your brand stand for? What values are there that help you connect with it? On a product level, this lowers your cholesterol. This is butter. When you eat this, it lowers your cholesterol. When they pitched this to me, it's like, nah, don't think so. I'm not going to eat butter and I'm going to get healthier. But they have clinically proven messages on the pack that they talk about. And we know that it's not easy to replicate. That means something. So product claims can connect with people. And if you cannot do anything else, if it's extremely a commodity, it is value messages. Do I get more for what I'm buying? How do you communicate that? With Colgate, the above is exactly the same message, but it is written in 3 different ways. And multinationals study the words that you use on pack to figure out which promotion message you resonate with most. Which one do people understand? Is it 2 for 1? Is it 30% off? Is it so much discount? It's amazing how much detail goes into that. And even messages that says there is more inside now. New news, right? Some message of that. The last thing before I wrap up, it is about the experience. So if you are able to get people to buy your brand, how do you keep them with your brand? Once you purchase it, does the product actually meet your expectation? Does the claims that we make on pack work or not? How do we design for users, not the market? How do we deliver value, and how do you communicate and magnify value as best as possible? This was a kids brand in Indonesia that we designed, Kids Milk. This was Milkwat. And the design here is nothing branded. There's almost no marketeer that was harmed in this project. Because there's no logo on it, there's no nutrition claims on it, there's no milk splashes on it. It's made for kids. Kids love the graphics. Kids don't have much money. They use it as a toy. They buy 12 of these packs, different countries. It's fun. This launched with 7 times over target. And after the country theme, they could campaign it to different other markets. These guys grew in sales from 900 million units to 1.8 billion. Not just this, there was a whole portfolio of work we've done, but that was one of the big builders. Shape. You can use shape strongly, and in Asia we're not using this. We're buying off-the-shelf, ready-made bottles, and customizing your shape for your brand can be very powerful. Single hand use, double hand use, how do we make that more suitable? In India, shop owners that make mayonnaises for a sandwich, and they only make the same sandwich with that. How do we use the pack to communicate other ways you can use that? Can you make a salad with this? Can you make a sandwich? Can you make a burger? Can you make something else? The sales went up 35% just to explain to people how else can you use a product. And the last thing, then I'll wrap up, make it shareable. People love to share stuff. If you do it right, it's free PR. We might not have bought that, but you all know it. We've seen that launch come by sometimes. It's not easy to print these labels with, or actually might be not as hard either, but it is something that engages people, something that people care about. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. They only gave me 30 minutes. I can keep going, but I have to leave soon. There's so much more when it comes to packaging design and how you use it smarter than just putting graphics on there. And if you use it smart, this is your biggest driver of sales. Closing thoughts, doing it right is not that expensive. You might pay a lot more than you pay now with a freelancer of a local agency, but it's not about spending more. It's about spending different. And if you do it right, your pack gives you the highest return on investment. Time up. That's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to scan some of the QR codes. If you want a copy of this deck, be happy to send it to you.